start our public hearing to amend the lodging ordinance of Fannin County. And this is a proposal to increase the lodging tax from 5% currently to 6% effective January 1st, 2021. We've already had one public hearing, and this would be the second public hearing before we vote on this ordinance. So at this time, we'll open up the floor for any citizens' comments about this ordinance. Anyone that wishes to speak, please raise your hand and come forward. We have some folks coming in. I'll ask them the same thing in case. All right, if we don't have any public comments on this ordinance, Mr. Patterson, do you have any thoughts on this? Final thoughts, sir?
No, I think it'll be good for our county, and I just think it's going to be a good thing. I don't see any issues at all.
Okay. Commissioner Johnson?
I have no comment.
Okay. Ms. Doss, you'll confirm we followed all?
Yes, except if you're going to vote to adopt it, you need to adopt it in your regular meeting.
In the regular meeting?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, then we'll move forward to putting this on the regular meeting. And we've already got one addition. We will call this item 1B. So we'll move this forward on the agenda, Commissioners, to item 1B. But again, we followed all procedures,
Yes, sir.
everything to this.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Okay, we'll close the public hearing, and then we'll open our regular meeting. Mr. Patterson, would you please lead us in prayer?
Lord, gracious Heavenly Father, we just come to you again today, thanking you for the blessings of life. Lord, we just can't tell you enough how much we need you, and we thank you, Lord. This is a month of November where we have Thanksgiving, Lord, but we need you every day, and we just ask that you would just be with us, help us to be all that you would want us to be, Lord. Help us to put our selves behind and just look to you. Give us wisdom in this meeting, Lord. Help us to do your will, and thank you again for all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hilton, I'd like to say something if I could before we get the meeting started. I would like to see if we could amend the agenda to talk about White Bath for that discussion. We've got some time constraints. And let me make it clear, this is not to say the White Path project is definitely on the go, but we need to do some drilling, do some things that are standard procedures on the renovation. And it really would help if we could get that going. It'll probably take a month. It may even be due as far as payment goes in January. But it would really be good because it's going to take a month for them to put us on the agenda. But if we could put that on discussion, and I realize it'd take a 2/3 vote. So
No, it doesn't.
I thought it'd be
To add it to an agenda item?
Well, either you can add an agenda item, or the chairman can, or a vote of the two commissioners.
The post commissioners can't do that.
Well, we'll add that on here as the last item if you want to discuss it. I'm not prepared to vote on anything about White Path tonight. But if you want to discuss it, that's fine. Do you got any problems with discussing it? Okay, we'll add it to, we'll put it on item number 4.
Item number 4?
Yep.
Okay. Mr. Hill, I don't know what we're gonna do as far as for Thanksgiving goes, but I feel like also we need to put on the agenda and discuss the hazard pay. It's been over a month and a half. Commissioner Johnson had asked to get Ms. Doss to look into it the last meeting, and I just feel like that, you know, our first responders, I think it would be something that would be good if we could just discuss that as well.
So you want to add hazard pay again on the agenda tonight?
Hazard pay.
You want to add hazard pay to the agenda tonight as
Yes,
well?
yes,
Okay.
to discuss it. Because Commissioner Johnson had asked Ms. Doss to look into it, and we may have some information that might help us on that.
Yeah, I think it's about 3 meetings ago,
Yeah, it's been over a month, hasn't it? Right.
so I was just kind of fine with not hearing about it. I was hoping next month was gonna come, but
Anything else you want to add to the
That's
agenda
it,
tonight, sir?
I sure appreciate your understanding.
All right. Well, item number 1 is to approve the minutes from the October 27th regular meeting. Do you have any issues with the minutes from the meeting?
I have no issues.
I have none.
Okay. I ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the October 27th meeting. Do I hear a motion?
Make the motion.
All right. Do I hear a second? All right, all in favor? It's approved.
What number is the hazard pay, Mr. Hill? You say, you want to put it
Number 5.
5? Okay. Got it.
I'm sorry, I signed the wrong one.
That's not this.
You signed that one.
All right. I'm supposed to go back to you. There you go.
Okay, public commentary. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand to be recognized. Come to the microphone, tell us who you are and where you live in Fannin County. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name's Donna Thompson. I live here in Blue Ridge. I was going to hold this off for the budget, but since you brought up White Path, I'm going to go ahead and make my comments tonight.
Sure.
Since you're preparing the budget for the next year, and more importantly, since we're nearing the end of the year, I think it's your duty, your responsibility to share with the citizens what your decision to purchase the White Path building is actually going to cost us. The SPOS was approved at $3.15 million. You have spent $1.3 million on the White Path purchase. That leaves us $1.85 million in the account. It sounds good initially. Compiling the information from the sub-reports, which I've reviewed, we have a baseline projected estimate, and I stress low estimate, of approximately $5.5 million in expenses. So we should note with this $5.5 million in expenses, it does not include a whole bunch of things that were recommended by Sutton, like consulting with a variety of engineers, environmental specialists, remediation of any toxins found, issues that might be uncovered during demolition and construction, permits, furnishings, and fixtures. So let's keep it simple. The lowball estimate of $5.5 million is much greater than the $1.85 million that we have remaining in the SPOS. So where are these funds going to come from? This is where I know the library moving to the White Path is coming to play. Even though the library was not a part of the so-called mandate that the citizens made with the SPOS, the library brings with it a $1.385 million grant. But with that grant, the county also incurs an additional expense of over $600,000 to be able to match that grant.
Correct.
So you should be familiar with the numbers. Let's cut to the chase. If the library's not involved, the county's looking at a shortfall of approximately $3.7 million. That's a low approximate. If the library is involved with the grant, the shortfall is approximately $2.3 million. Excuse me. Bottom line, the citizens will have on their backs between $3 and $5 million or more above the SPOS allocation. Certainly this isn't a great deal. It's been marketed to us for the purchase of the building. But since no one has told the citizens what this building repurpose is actually going to cost, from our projections of what we put together with the numbers that Sutton has provided, at the very least, and we're still going with that lowball estimate, the project will be an estimated over $7 million, and that doesn't include those unknown expenses that we talked about. So Sutton, I believe, projected a new build would be around $8 million. So we're kind of paralleling that if we don't exceed it. I now understand.
That's for both, right?
For both?
For both the admin and the library. You was talking about the library.
Mm-hmm. It's for the whole thing.
Gotcha.
I now understand why it was mentioned in the election interviews that the SPOS was going to be coming up, another SPOS would be coming up, because there's not enough money to cover the expenses. So you're passing this encumbrance on to the new administration. I know that Chairman-elect Hensley is here. But it's truly your responsibility to let us, the citizens, know what the projected total cost of the White Path will be, because it's going to end up being more than double the original SPOS allocation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who would like to be next? Bishop? Mr. Bishop?
My name is Lane Bishop. I live in the Mineral Bluff area. First of all, I'm not mad at any one of you three. Just want you to know that up front. But I am very concerned about something. I drove by the Senior Citizen Center last week, and I noticed a meeting over there, the Republican Party. I belong to the Mountain Patriots, and we have been denied the right to meet over there. And I understand there's some other groups that have been allowed to meet over there. Gentlemen and Mr. Chairman, that's wrong. So I'm asking Mr. Chairman first, and you two to agree to allow the Mountain Patriots to continue meeting in the Senior Citizen Center, as we have done now probably for 6 or 7 years. It's wrong not to allow our group, not to allow our group to meet there when you're allowing other people to meet there. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to be next? Yes, sir.
My name is Brian Noyes. I live in the Sugar Creek area. And I'd like to see some type of liability on these cabin rental companies. You got people coming up here and buying these big houses, building big houses, and we got to put up the noise every weekend, sometimes even through the week, because they're letting a house that should only hold no more than 4 to 6 people, 16 to 20, 25 people, and we don't need to hear it every night. There's got to be some liability here. Okay, the people that rent their stuff personally themselves, they're monitoring that. They know who they're letting in, and they're watching their place. These cabin rental companies are the ones that are letting these large groups. 2 couples might rent it, 20 more show up. And when's enough going to be enough? We need to get something written up in the county to where it says, okay, they're going to be liable for not just breaking noise ordinances, but they're tearing up the roads, the driveways. It's just, why should we have to put up I moved next to a racetrack, I knew it was there. That don't bother me. But when it's night after night after night of gangbanger music and other kinds of music and hoop and holler, I go to the barn in the morning and do chores and they're still partying. I have a rental myself. We enjoy our visitors come up here. We do the carry drives, okay? My rental is for one couple. There's no drunkenness, no alcohol allowed on my property, because I see what's going on around me. And something's gotta be done, because several of our neighbors are getting fed up with it. And that's in the Laurel Crossing subdivision.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Public commentary is closed. All right. We move the vote for the hotel motel amendment to item 1B. Mr. Patterson, you have any further comments on this ordinance, sir?
No, I have none.
Okay. Commissioner Johnson?
None voted.
All right. I'll make a motion that we approve this ordinance. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second? All in favor? Ordinance is approved. Ms. Walker, that's the original here? Okay. Okay, item 1B, Mr. Keith Nicholson, would you come up? Tell us a little bit about the situation we have in the county. We don't really want to mention any names. Address is fine, but I don't want to mention anyone's name.
There is a location on Lebanon Road, close to the Highway 2 end. They have built a fence that is probably 8 to 10 feet off the edge of the pavement. I have called the person and asked him to move it, to get it off of our right of way. He said, "What if I don't?" I said, "Well, the county can take you to court, and we'll let the judge order it." I waited a couple of weeks, spoke with him again, asking him how the situation was, if it any closer to being resolved. And he said that he was going to talk to his attorney and see what his options were. So then I went to Commissioner Stan, and we got with Ms. Dawson. She was to send him a letter. As it turns out, right in there, that part of Lebanon Road actually has 100-foot right-of-way, 50 foot from the center. So he's well over in our right-of-way area. At that, he should have been 75 feet from the center of the road. That's where he should have been with it. So. But I'm just giving y'all an update.
And there was no, he just put it up, there was no request through land
No.
development, nothing? Okay. These are real large, heavy fence posts, aren't they? Very.
They are 6x6, pressure treated 6x6s.
Okay. That, from what I've seen, that's a pretty dangerous thing right there. That curve kind of, as you're going in towards Highway 2, you have a kind of a gentle curve. If somebody hit that with a motorcycle, that would be, I'd be very concerned about it.
To me, my biggest concern would be, because that is on a hill through there, somebody gets a little too much speed up, road's a little icy or something, that's when they'll go into it.
You have any thoughts on this, Commissioner Patterson?
No, we need to just follow up on it and make sure that something's done. I think it needs to be taken down. I think it's, would you not say, Keith, it is dangerous?
Yes, and like I say, it is I don't know why we've got such a big right of way there,
Right.
but we do. It needs to be off of our right of way. I mean, if he wants to ask for a variance, he can do that. That's on him. It would be up to you or the next board, whoever, to approve a variance there to be a little closer. But for now, it needs to be off of the right of way. Tore completely down and then ask for a variance.
And he's well on the, like you said, he's well
Yeah.
on the county right away.
And I don't know for sure. I know like signs put on the county right of way. Road department, whoever, we can pick them up. And I don't know if this is something like that, maybe
Well,
something
I mean, if it's on the county right away, it can be clear.
county
I
itself
haven't
can
gotten any
take it
response,
down.
and I haven't heard from an attorney, but I know that the road department clears things off the right of way every day.
Yes.
I don't know what would be involved in clearing that, because this it just so happened, I've been in that area 2 or 3 days before we talked, and it is a substantial fence.
You've seen this, Commissioner Johnson?
And then,
It wouldn't be any problem keeping a cow in that yard.
no, here's the problems I foresee, and I just took another gander right before I came here. For one, it's a solid wooden fence on 6x6s. Because some people would make the argument, you know, a fence, just regular fence posts held together by wire or whatever. I mean, it's essentially a guardrail. But guardrails are a lot lower. I mean, my main concern is the safety.
Correct.
If a car, anything hits that fence, it's going to stop. And if it doesn't stop, you know, with the height of those posts, it's just a liability for the county. Looking at it just as I came in, and I can remember there was an old fence there, it was an old barbed wire fence that was there. It looks like maybe 4 to 5 feet behind where they placed the wooden fence would be in line with the fence that's existing there on, I guess, the neighbor's property, which would be Patterson's.
Yes.
I mean, it's just kind of one of those things. I don't like hearing that, you know, the attorney, what my options, the options are the county can go remove it tomorrow, I would think. It's on county right away. But there are other fences, you know, close and on the right of way through there.
Correct.
The problem with that fence is it's way too close. I think we can all agree. with that.
Hitting those pressure treated 6x6s would be about like a car hitting a telephone pole.
Yeah.
Be very little difference.
Ms. Dawes, have you done anything as far as a letter?
I did a letter, I haven't heard back from anybody, but I do think that you brought up a good point, I hadn't really thought about it, because I just happened to notice that fence, because it was such a substantial fence, and it was so close to the road. But that's a huge right of way, so I think it would, when you decide you're gonna take an action, you need to figure out, as far as that particular road, that area, are you good at any fence that's within 25 feet of the right of way, 35? Because what did you say, it's 150 total? 75 from each side or 50?
50 from each side, 50
Yeah.
from the center.
Yeah, and so then if you do a setback here at 75 feet, but say at 50 feet.
But if you go 50 feet, you're gonna hit the guy's house.
Yeah, you're gonna come real
I guess
close.
you're gonna be real close right there. So,
Yeah, it'd be.
I mean, I'm wondering how far the house is actually off the road anyway, personally. And I don't think anyone will know without going out there and measuring, but it looks like if it's 35 foot from the right of way, what are the setbacks as far as building a home?
25 from the front?
When,
I mean,
the ordinance that the county has is a little crazy. If the road has 40-foot right of way, you have to be 35 feet off the road right of way. If it has more than 40 feet of right of way, you only have to be 25 feet off the road right of way.
So
That's
in
the way
this
that
case,
ordinance
like,
reads.
okay, just what you said, that would put something starting 75 feet from the center of the road.
Correct.
His house is real close.
It's close. I believe his house would be off of it.
It might hit his porch. No, I'm just kidding. It's very close, and I don't want to be complicated as far as, just so all you know how I feel, I don't want to be complicated with the person. There's precedence is set there with fences, but it's just not a wood fence like that. You know, you hit a pasture fence, you're gonna knock posts down. A fence like that, you hit one post, it's gotta move almost every post or break the rail. So I think that's the concern that I have more than, I don't mind, I mean, because if we go to saying anyone has to move their fence off the right of way, we're gonna have to move half the highway too. I'm gonna have to move part of mine. So, not a lot of it, maybe 2 posts, but it's where it goes to a cattle crossing. So see, there's the reason why I'm trying to stay out of it, because I own a lot of property on Lebanon Road, and it has cattle crossing, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and that fence has to go to the cattle crossing.
Correct.
So it is a fence all the way to the back of the guardrail. And, but this fence is a completely different type of fence, and there are a lot of fences on the right of way, on Lebanon Road, and on Highway 2, and everywhere.
All through Mobile, Old Mobile, Mountain View Road, there's some of it probably not 3 foot off the road right away.
Right.
I wish we could do something about all of that.
Has the gentleman occupied the house yet? You know?
It's a vacation home. He's comes
Vacation.
up when there's a holiday weekend.
Okay.
But what do you feel like, or you, or Zach, either one, I mean, what do you feel like would be a safe distance for that fence off the road?
Typically, we try, most of your roads are either a 40-foot or a 60-foot right of way. So when you do the 25 or the 35, that comes out to 55 feet off the center of the road. That would be my suggestion, stay 55 feet off the center of the road.
55 feet off the center.
Correct.
I mean, you're right away from the center over is 50 feet, right?
Right.
Okay, so you're saying stay off the right of way completely?
That would, he would be, that would be, if we said 55 feet from the center, that would be allowing him to come within 5 feet of the right of way.
In essence, a 20-foot variance.
Yeah.
My suggestion would be to talk to Mr. Ratcliffe, because he's more involved with the roads. You and Mr. Ratcliffe get together and see what, Zach, can I see you? I can't see if you're nodding your head or not. What are your thoughts about getting with Keith and giving him your input on where you think would be safe for that type of fence along there? I mean, I think that's a safety hazard.
Normally 4x4 is what they would consider a breakaway. Anything 4x4 or less, you find that on any state route or any mailbox or anything.
Right.
4x4 is a breakaway post. So when they went to the 6, it wouldn't matter if it's a mailbox or what, it would still be without standing.
Yeah.
So speaking of that specification, what if they swapped the 4x4s and made it match the same amount as that other fence that's right adjacent? Because I mean, that's gonna be the whole argument. If I'm this guy, I'm gonna be like, well, that fence is this close to the road, why can't my fence be that close to the road? And I know sometimes we've got to draw a line and say, no fences on the road. But there's fences all up and down Lebanon. I mean, like you said, it's all over the county. So maybe if they agree to go to a safer post, which would be a 4x4, and move it back to where the other existing fence line is, would that be a fair, I mean, my fear is the 6x6s, because I think we all agree that's a big piece of wood, especially when they're tied together
Yeah.
with wood.
The previous fence, was it down, I mean, it's an immediate little hill drop off there of his yard. Was the other fence off down the hill, or was it
It
right
was
there?
kind of half and half. It was, you can see where they tied, and the only reason I know, I just looked.
Yeah.
Where the wood fence is, now coming down the road, this fence is like a barbed wire fence, and they tied back into it like that. So what I'm saying is, the way I looked at it is if they moved this fence back in line with that fence and used a less substantial post like Zach's talking about, I would feel a lot better about that. That way if someone hit it, it's gonna break the post over and not break whatever hit the post.
Ms. Dawes, could we send something that's kind of general to the man and with, based on what information Keith and Zach can do with what Mr. Johnson said, and basically have we're requesting to do this, it's a reasonable request, and give him a time frame to do this?
Sure.
Can we do that?
Yeah, and Keith or Zach will call and tell me, and I mean, I've taken notes, what you want and how much further, if you want to move further and say, you know, this is the best we can do, you'll need to come before the Board of Commissioners and get an official variance. But short of this, if it's not done within 30 days or whatever you tell me, you know, we're gonna take it down. Because that's one serious fence.
But to be clear though, like, you know, with this gentleman is saying he's gonna see what his options are, there's really no options on someone else's property,
No.
right?
No. And I believe, Keith, did we not look, his plat actually shows the right of way, did we not look at that
Yes.
that day? Yeah, I mean,
Yes,
he
it
bought
does.
subject to the right of way, it's there, it's just, I don't know if he didn't measure it, he didn't think about it.
But do you feel as an attorney that as long as it's, cause it's kinda like variances we approve. You know, if there's a house or two in there already 15 feet, we kinda, that's the
Yeah.
the precedence that was set. So it's kinda hard to tell people, unless it is a safety issue, that they can't be within 15 feet, is that correct?
Correct.
So if there's an existing fence that I believe all of us could attest to is over the Methuselah and those hedgerows.
Yeah.
And he would move it back, less substantial posts like Zach's saying,
Well,
and
there's a-
and actually communicate with Mr. Nicholson. I think the problem could be resolved
Oh,
without.
absolutely. I mean, there's a whole lot of difference between, say, you know, a cross-tie fence that's just stacked up and a heavy deer can knock over, or a barbed wire, like you said, there's all sorts of fences out there. This thing is huge.
And I think that's what's called everyone's eye. I mean, it's just, you can't miss it when you come off the hill there. I mean, it's just, it kind of jumps out at you.
Well, even if you're going up Highway 2 and you turn up Lebanon, I mean, it's pretty fence.
Beautiful.
And you know, because of, the issue with the bridge over Little Fighting Town, we actually have extra school buses going that route that we wouldn't be able to right now, because we're having to divert some school buses. There's just more traffic on that road right now than there might otherwise be.
Okay. All right, so if you and Mr. Ratcliffe get together and then give information to Ms. Dawes about the fence posts with the specifics that Mr. Johnson's mentioning, and then we send a letter to this gentleman and copy the commissioners on it, please, and we'll start that ball rolling. I mean, it's a beautiful fence, but it's just kind of, I wouldn't want my head to hit that.
No, definitely
Yeah. Okay. You think that's,
But how do you feel? I mean, if he uses a less substantial post and
Right.
moves it back to an existing fence line, I mean, I think that's fair, even though his fence line and the old fence line is definitely on the county right of way. Do you agree with that?
not. Yes.
But, you know, so.
Yeah, I'd say even the old fence line is on.
well, if somebody hits that, they've already run off a bank and down anyway. I mean, it's not like, you know, barely off the road to hit that. That's a,
That's my, I think that would be fair for him versus,
Be a compromise, I think.
but, yeah, hopefully no more attorneys are mentioned, or, I mean, because if that happens, they used to have to deal with her.
Yeah. I have spoken with the gentleman a couple of times on the phone, and he said he's usually just Johnny on the spot when it comes to permits or anything like that. He was leaving it up to his fencing company. And they said they had never had problems with building fences. Nobody ever questioned the right of way. Said the first time that they had ever been questioned about it, so. I think the fencing company needs to learn a little
No,
something.
it's just acting up. Trying to get it reset.
So it's a unique fence that you don't see very often,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
All right, I think we beat this fence post to death. We're on. You guys will get your information to Ms. Doss, and then she'll send a letter and copy us. Send us, if you would, the letter ahead of time so that we can have some input if there's something else there. Satisfactory to you, Mr. Patterson?
That's fine.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Okay.
Copacetic.
All right. Moving right along. Item number 2, Mr. Graham.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We wanted to talk about the bids we received a month ago, the meeting before last, I believe, for the monitoring of debris removal for storms that we thought we'd might not ever need, but came close this time almost. We looked at we received 3 bids, one from Tetra Tech, one from Thompson Consulting, and one from Debris Tech. We looked at all 3 bids, the qualifications of the firm, qualifications of the staff, and the technical approach, and of course the expense, the funding, the hourly rates and stuff. And based on our findings, our recommendation would be, and we all one of these forms we've got. Based on our recommendations, I don't see any reason why we don't accept the lower of the 3 offers. I think we'd be just fine with them. I spoke with our debris monitor, our debris removal company that we have pre-contracts with, and they said all 3 companies were good companies. They did say that Tetra Tech was a global company, and that the other 2 were more regional. I feel like that would suit us better in our situation here anyway. So one thing I did like about Thompson Consulting, that's the one that has the lower price. They went ahead and pre-designated specific people who would be assigned to our job should we hire them. And as I said before, we don't pay anything unless we actually activate the contract. This is just a pre-contract in case we need them to monitor debris removal.
And you're recommending
Thompson
Thompson.
Consulting, yes.
and they're just going to do the monitoring, is that correct?
That's correct, yes. They only come in if we activate a contract with our debris removal company. They actually come in and monitor the debris removal company and do the documentation of the number of cubic yards that are actually moved and reduced and then hauled out and stuff to make sure we have accurate figures for FEMA if we got a disaster declaration.
Mr. Patterson, you have any comments on this, sir?
No, I have no issues with that. Looks like a good move compared with Thompson.
Mr. Johnson?
I'm for whoever Robert's for.
All right. Okay. I'll ask for a motion that we accept this from Thompson Consulting. I ask for a motion.
Make the motion.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right, Thompson is approved.
Thank you, Jim.
We really hope that we would never have to have something like this again, and Zeta proved us wrong, didn't it?
Yeah, sure did. We have actually been speaking with FEMA. So far, we have not gotten a declaration from the federal government for Zeta. The state of Georgia is still compiling cost estimates and trying to come up with enough. They have to meet somewhere close to $15 million statewide before we can get a disaster declared through FEMA. And locally, our county has to meet about $90-something thousand worth. We are well over the county. That's not going to be a problem. So we're just waiting to find out if the state's going to meet that threshold before we can see if we get any reimbursement money or money to do any of this work. And if so, we may want to consider activating these contracts that we've got in place now. So that would be a time for another meeting.
Gotcha.
We're gonna need something with all the debris around the bridges in the county, particularly at Basco Road and particularly in that area.
Yeah, the bridges are in terrible shape as far as, not the bridge themselves, but the debris that's under them. There are huge logs. I believe Zach can attest to that. There's some huge logs that have piled up against the bridges and stuff. If we get another storm similar to that, or even maybe less, it could create some real issues. But I will have to, if you don't mind, I'd like to really commend the Public Works Department for the work they have done. They, on the morning of October 29th, they got out and were out there right when it first started, clearing roads and clearing trees out of the county right-of-ways and stuff to get traffic moving again. And they worked long, hard hours. They worked really hard to get a lot of it actually cleaned up on the sides of the road. So we've gotten, I think Zach said maybe 40% roughly of the debris on the sides of the road has been cleaned up already by our crew. So they did a great job.
Great. Appreciate it.
I've got one other item I'd like to bring up if possible while I'm up here. I had something come up with our new ambulances. You know, as you remember, it was over a year ago that we actually agreed to order them and placed them on order. And the chassis at that time were being not remanufactured, but retooled or whatever through Chevrolet. Historically, when we bought our Fords, they sat up so high that we had to have airbags put under them, so that when we load the stretcher, when we open the back door of the ambulance would squat down. The airbags would release the air and let the ambulance squat down so the stretcher would go in. When we moved to buying the Chevrolets, we no longer had to have airbags because the Chevrolets sat lower and we were able to load the stretchers. These new ambulances, we've already received one ambulance. The new ambulance is set up higher. The chassis is sitting quite a bit higher than the old ones. Like I said, this is a new design. Nobody, even the ambulance manufacturer, wasn't aware of it. So we did not specify airbags or liquid springs or anything in these. Consequently, our medics are having a hard time, especially if they're parked on any kind of a slope where the back end of the truck's up a little bit. They're having a really hard time getting the stretcher up in the truck to be able to load it. I'm afraid we're going to get some injuries from it eventually. Possibly, an injured patient. Hopefully not an injured patient, but also hopefully not an injured employee. I spoke with the builder, and they weren't aware of the problem either. As a matter of fact, they had 2 or 3 other builds going on down there, and when I told them about it, they started checking and realized that, yeah, they had a problem. So I got pricing to put either liquid springs or airbags under the trucks, under those 2 trucks. The one truck we've already received is going to be a little more expensive because it's already, of course, everything's wired up, connected. The truck that's still at the shop, the remount truck, has not had the wiring harnesses and stuff connected to the box. They actually have to pick the box up off the chassis to mount the either liquid springs or the airbags. Our mechanic, after speaking to him, he recommended highly the liquid springs over the airbags because we have so much trouble with those airbags busting or valves sticking and things. Had a lot of trouble over the years when we did have them. Problem is there's a difference of $1,800 per truck in the cost over from the liquid springs to the airbags. The remount truck that they have down there now, they said to put liquid springs under it while it's there, they can do it for $11,300. They can put airbags under it for $8,500. The truck we already have, if we send it back to them to have them put under it, the liquid springs would be $12,800. or the airbags would be $10,000. What I would like to ask is that right now we can think about the one we've already got, and if y'all want to come by and look at it, I can show you. But while we've got this one, before they actually do the wiring and connecting the box to the chassis, I would like to get permission to go ahead and put either the airbags or liquid springs on that truck at the additional cost.
And liquid springs is how much?
The liquid springs for the one we've got down there now is $11,300. That includes taking the box off and mounting the springs and then installing the box.
And you'd have to do these one at a time because you wouldn't want to have the new one out of service until you got the new one in, right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
What stretchers did we buy at one time to help? Because if we don't do this now, someone definitely is gonna have a hurt back. Because we thought they're gonna have a hurt back. I mean, didn't we buy some stretchers that raise themselves or something?
We did. We have power stretchers, but you know they'll only raise up so high, and even at the highest level, it's a struggle. If like I say, if it's on completely flat ground, it's not too bad. But if they're on any kind of slope, as a matter of fact, even at the ramp at the hospital, when they pull in the ramp, as you know, when you go through the ramp, it goes back downhill. If they pull in far enough to get to where they can roll the stretcher up on the ramp part of the hospital, it actually jacks the rear end of the truck up. So even there, and then of course all the locations we've got around the county, they're on hillsides and stuff. If they're on any kind of a little knoll or slope, it's creating a problem for them. They actually have to get at the front and lift the stretcher up and put it in there.
And this hadn't happened, I mean, they didn't catch this anywhere else except?
Evidently, we were some of the first. He even contacted the, I forget what it is, an organization for ambulance manufacturers, and they weren't even aware of the problem yet. We evidently are getting some of the first Chevrolet chassis that are being built as ambulances.
They didn't have regulation specs or stuff like that, you know?
What they did, they increased the GVWR on these new Chevrolet chassis, and I guess when they did, they had to beef up the rear springs and it caused it to sit up higher.
You need a lift kit for your stretcher.
That might be the solution.
It might be cheaper than these airbags.
And the liquid springs, even though they're a little more expensive, is the better way to go, less likelihood of getting damaged.
Yeah, they seem to have less repair problems, and they also create a much better ride for the patient in the back in the compartment.
That's important.
On the road too.
Okay.
Robert, one thing, not even a chance they could recall these for that problem.
It's not actually a manufacturing defect, other than just, you know, we didn't specify putting liquid springs on it, and they didn't. I guess the ambulance builder, at the time when we ordered these, they didn't have any specifications from Chevrolet because they were actually retooling the whole truck line at that time. So they did.
You can call Mr. Chevrolet.
Call Mr. Chevrolet and see what he's going to do about it.
Yeah, I think the liquid shocks, the springs he's talking about, are much better. We have airbags on a lot of our trucks, and they're a constant headache. They blow out. It's the hydraulics. The hydraulic system you're talking about, probably a lot less maintenance, especially as many times as y'all be letting it up and down, probably.
Yeah. Quieter too when you got a patient in there. The airbags they have an air pump, and they tend to kick on and off going down the road, and it's pretty noisy in the back of the truck sometimes.
Well, we put a fairly substantial amount of money aside into public safety for issues like this that are unbudgeted, and we have enough money in there. There's no issue to cover that. You got anything else on this?
No, I believe that's got it.
Okay, so we would just be approving or vote to approve either the liquid springs or the airbags on the vehicle that's down there now. And then once it comes up here, then there'd be a decision needed soon to decide what to do on the next vehicle, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. You got any other thoughts on this, Commissioner Patterson?
No, sir, Liquid Springs is like way to go.
Commissioner Johnson?
No, I don't.
Okay, Liquid Springs,
Liquid, yeah,
Liquid Springs, okay. All right, I'll make a motion that we approve the $11,300 for the current ambulance that's down at the manufacturer to put the Liquid Springs on there. I'll make that motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. Okay, all in favor? Okay, you're done.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
All right, item number 3, and just to be clear to the folks that are here, we're not voting to approve the budget. What we're here is discuss and put a proposed budget into the county of Oregon. And we have some numbers that we're looking at here. We just have to see if we agree enough to move forward where it would be a proposed, basically, the chairman is recommending to the board a budget. Once it goes into the county of Oregon, it would be the proposed budget. Then you have 2 weeks that it has to advertise, but we would not be voting on the final budget until December the 8th, which would be the second Tuesday in December. So that is right around the corner, but it's a month. So there was some concern that we're approving a budget. Right now, we're not. The proposed budget would be going into the paper, but on the bulletin board and on the website, we would have the numbers that basically would be, we would have that available for the public on Thursday. Is that correct, Ms. Walker?
Mm-hmm.
So, you have plenty of time for everybody to see that and have their input, and the post commissioners and myself to look, examine, review this until it's time to actually vote on it, which will be not quite a month, almost a month away. So the challenge we have this year with the budget is the same challenge that every county, every state is having to deal with, and that is trying to deal with this with all of the COVID expenditures that were unanticipated. The state budget approved was about a $2 billion reduction, or about 8% in their budget for the year. For the state runs July to June, so they're already in the middle of their fiscal year, and there's significant cutbacks. Some of the other commissioners around us that I've discussed, they're all combating and trying to scratch their heads on. They know what the expenses are, but the revenues is the big part that they're having to struggle with. And yeah, so far this year we're doing pretty well. In our county, a lot of the tourism business has helped contribute on the hotel motel tax and the SPOS tax. But we really won't know how the year is actually until the end of January, when the new administration is here. And by that time, they will have a total of final 2020 revenue and cost numbers. And what I feel, and it's my personal opinion, that the times warrant being as conservative as we can with our budget, and at the same time, when the new administration is here, they'll have a chance to look at it, and if they choose to amend any department, they have the option to do that. If we were to sign off on a budget that's sky high, that would be a disservice to the new administration. And the way I look at it, if they have a completely different perspective on what they want to do with the county moving forward, they won't be stuck with something that they have to struggle with for a year. They'll have time to analyze what they've got and be in a position of strength to amend, if they so chose, as they do. So that's kind of been our thinking during this process. We've not had any layoffs or furloughs like some other governments have had during this pandemic. We've tried to watch out for the tax money. I'm a conservative when it comes to finances, but I have looked at that, looked at what we've got here. The big challenge is we put, instead of having the insurance divided into all the different departments, that kind of exposes different departments when you, particularly if you're self-funded, because it's, if someone has an unfortunate health event in a small department, it blows their budget all to dickens. And it really doesn't protect the privacy of individuals. So starting a year or two ago, we put all of that into one item, risk management, which is health insurance plus the insurance on liability for the county. And this coming year, from July through beginning in July, we went from the partially self-funded insurance to the conventional, which is basically you're paying a premium, a set amount each month, which for a budget is much better for you to predict that, because you'll have a number that you have. The self-funded insurance, the hope there is when you go that way that you have the opportunity to save money if you have a good year with health. But if you have a bad year, particularly with a small government, a little over 200 people, employees, it can really play havoc with your budget. So we were more realistic in looking at the risk management for the budget for 2021, and that was the big difference. The budget numbers that we're looking at here totally for 2021 that we're recommending to go forward with is a total grand total revenues, $29,356,858, and that compares to the current 2020 budget of $28,564,665. So budget increase grand total would be a slight increase of 2.8% over 2020, and the lion's share of that, of course, would be the risk management or health insurance. Commissioner Patterson, you've had a lot of numbers here. You got any thoughts or questions on what we're looking at here as far as a recommended budget?
So you said a 2.8% increase?
Yeah, 2.8%. You can check my math if you want to. I'm open for that. In fact, I'll just open it up to the board here. Either one of you make any comments or anything else to discuss. It's if your philosophy differs, just lay it out there.
So how are we going to approach this? When's is the final, I know the final voting's on December 8th. We're gonna have another look at it and let the chairman, the department heads.
What we do, this will be, this information's for everybody.
Right.
Everybody to look at it. And it'll be put out there on Thursday. You know, anybody, every citizen in the county, it'll be in the News Observer and on the county website. And then we have 4 months to finalize and come up with another. I mean, that's typical of what's happened with budgets here for years.
So once it's published Thursday, then that's when you'll hear all your concerns.
Yep.
Of budgetary
Yep.
constraints, or hopefully some people say, I don't need that much.
Yeah.
I want to go ahead and be very clear how I feel about this budget. And if I'm wrong, I beg any of you to correct me. I don't know any of us right now that are spending more money. Any of us. If you are spending more money, I'd like to know who you are. We're not giving all of our employees raises. We're not, I mean, at least in my company, and it's kind of throughout all other county governments, and as was stated earlier, the state is cutting large amounts. So I'm going to just ask everyone, until this pandemic is over, we need to be very smart. And if it's not right, if I don't see any of the taxpayers out here spending more money than they did 6 months ago, or getting raises more than they did 6 months ago. So right now, as of this budget time, till we know where we're gonna go and where this is gonna head, I would suggest everyone be comfortable where you're at. That's what I would suggest. Now, that's just the conservative side of me. But I mean, if any of you are spending more money, I'd like to know, I'd like to know how and on what. 'Cause I'm sure there's gonna be some people saying, yeah, no, you know, we need this, we need this, we need this. But in reality, right now, I deal with a wide range of people, and I don't know anybody spending more money now than they did 6 months ago before this pandemic started, or 8 months ago. So if anyone can prove me wrong, I would love to be proven wrong, but I'm pretty sure all of our checkbooks, we're not spending more now than we were 6, 8 months ago. So I think the responsible approach with the county government's money is the same. We stay conservative until we see where we're gonna come out. I don't know I know there's a county to the east of us that's raising taxes. I do know that, and I know it's not a very popular move from my friends in Union County, or the county to the east of us. It's being not widely received. So even though my day will end here December the 31st, I don't want to leave any future administrations in a bind. So as far as I go, if any of you have any requests for increasing your budgets this year, I'm for increasing none. So just to be very clear about that. I would love to hear someone say they'd like to reduce theirs, but I'm about a betting man. I've been here almost, right at 8 years exactly right now, and that hasn't happened yet. I doubt it will happen, but we need to be very responsible right now, because even though we are still getting a lot of tourism here, and those numbers look good, we don't know truthfully when the end of this is going to come. So I don't think that anyone that works for the government is any different than a tax-paying citizen outside this room. And I don't see them spending more money and asking for big raises. So I would assume that all of us responsible people in government, which I'm only in it for another month and a half, but while I'm in it, I'm going to be responsible as I have the past 8 years. And I'm not going to ask for any money right now during such a hard and horrible time. That's all I have to say.
Got any other thoughts, Mr. Patterson?
Wow. Hard act to follow. We got, I understand and I agree. I just take it a little bit further and say, I know some people probably are still hurting. But I can see the conservative effort of it, and the argument in that way. Is there gonna be any cost of living? What do y'all say about that?
The only increases that are in this budget are the state unfunded mandates that they passed on us to give salary increases to re-elected officials. We really don't have any option on that. Other than that, no.
What do you mean?
The state mandated that any county officials that were re-elected, they've got, was it a 5% boost, Ms. Casaway?
I know on one of the elected officials, it was almost 9,000 for the year.
Yeah. So it's pretty substantial increase at the state. I mean, that was nice of them to do that.
Oh, is the state paying for it?
The state mandated that we have to do that.
Unfunded.
We have to do it.
Yeah.
We have to pay it out of
Yes,
our
sir.
coffers?
Yes.
Yes, sir. The state, they set the salaries for the elected officials. They do it by size of the county.
Makes me glad
Yeah.
I'm gonna be gone from there in December. Makes me glad.
Yeah.
That's all I'm gonna say.
So any official that was reelected in the state, county official, the state didn't have to do anything on that. They just said the counties are gonna have to dig in and pay that.
Did that that won't affect any of our employees as far as that goes.
No, it's just simply re-elected officials that
Yeah.
are in there. We have no choice on that.
Did the state say why they're doing that? Never mind.
Don't get me started. That's one of the biggest complaints that any local government can have, and it's in many different areas where the state has an unfunded mandate, meaning they don't fund it, you do. And there's not a heck of what you can do about it. Do you have anything else on that, Mr.
I don't
Patterson?
have anything.
Okay. Well, then, what we'll do is, we will put together, we have some scribbling and writing on this, but we'll have something printed out and present to the county of Oregon on Thursday, correct, Ms. Casaway?
Yes.
We'll have that done, and we'll put that on the county website. We'll put it on the bulletin board downstairs and make that available for anyone. And if someone wants a hard copy, they can get in touch with Ms. Walker, and we'll see that that gets done. And then we'll finalize this on December the 8th. We'll have a public hearing prior to that, and then finalize the county budget for 2021 at that point. So, all right. Okay, new agenda item number 4, White Path. I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Patterson. Ball's in your court.
All right, appreciate that. First of all, I enjoyed letting you talk about, she done some homework, haven't you?
I have.
And that's good, that's good. Let me just say, to begin with, that, make it clear that we're not moving forward with this project. What we're trying to do is gather information so that we can make a good choice whether we move forward or not, which direction to go. And the next step, and I think you mentioned a little bit of it in your talk, would be to get some drillings and borings as far as the rock. Some rocks are easier to move than others. We're going to be trying to, if that is to scale with the architect, it's going to have to move some rock and make it look real nice, level it out. And then we also have to look at the retaining walls, those type of things, in any renovation. It's pretty standard procedure. So we're going to, check all those things out. Also, hazardous material survey, we'll look at that as well. And to do that, this is scientific. This is not the eyeball test. It's going to run around $11,000. Okay, and it'll take them about a month to do that. But this is for us just to be able to decide and pass it on to the library board, which they have, our local library board has to make a decision on it, and then pass it back to us. But the time constraints, the state has told us that they won't allow us to just sit on that grant, 3.1, that some decisions have to be made, and so that's what we're looking at, okay, because they can take it back if we don't make a decision one way or the other. So we're trying to get some information so that the library board can chew on it and look at it, and then we'll have a joint effort and see what we've got. As far as what, how it's going to be paid for, we haven't even got that far yet. We're looking at some things, but we may go in a different direction. You never know. So but this is a necessary step that we need to see just where we're at on it, and to get some clarity on the project itself. So, with that being said, Ms. Dawes, have I left anything out, pretty much?
No, I think that's what you told me, sir.
All right. What I would like to do, I would like for us to be able to go ahead and call Contour, and Mr. Elton, I think you've probably got one of these. You can pass that on to Earl. These are two proposals, and it comes up to $11,000. I think they're highlighted for you. But one is with the drillings and boring, and the other is with hazardous material. But I would like to see if we could go through with this and, you know, maybe get the ball rolling on that so we can have some ideas and see what we, you know, see what we've got down there as far as that's concerned. And about, I think the second or third page, you'll see the cost estimates from Contour, which is out of Kennesaw.
And what is, so now,
That's what you really think, girl.
Did you do that, Mr. Johnson?
no.
Go ahead.
So where's this coming from? What is this testing for? Why are we doing it now?
It's testing for hazardous material, and also the drilling and boring is for soil samples, and also the retaining walls, and for future building additions, which they might be down there, because we've got plenty of room for additions, especially the library. So that's what that's for.
But so why are we doing it now? I mean, what is this for the library?
This is for both. Okay.
Because I might can answer Ms. Thompson's question, how I feel about the library. I never wanted the library in the building anyway.
Okay.
First.
Right.
Okay. Secondly, there's not enough money to build a library. Okay. Even with the numbers we all threw around when we met right here, was going to not even cover half the cost of building a library. So I haven't heard anything about a library now in months, because I thought everyone realized there's not enough money to build a library.
Well,
So,
it depends on how big you want to build a library.
well, I'm not interested in building a library, so why would how can I be interested in building a library when I know we don't have the funds to build the library? Even though the state they did grant us, what was it, 1.3 million?
1.3.
Okay, but we had to match 600.
600, right.
All right, and that's not gonna build a library. From the general consensus I got when we met in here was that no one even wanted to be at White Path, for one. And number two, they felt like they needed a nicer library. So that, when I left from that meeting, the offer was to, the way I felt, just may clarify for Ms. Thompson, the way I felt, there's not enough funds to build a library to the standards that people on the library board is wanting. So I don't know why we would spend another $11,000 for the library board,
Gotcha.
to where no one's came up with any money yet. We have a grant sitting there if the county matches 600.
Right.
That's gonna put us at 2 million.
Right.
Okay, they felt like they needed 10,000 square feet. Okay, that was $200 a square foot. That's gonna come nowhere near building the library. That won't even match half of it. So until, I'm guessing maybe the next commission board comes up with a way to come up with another $3+ million. I mean, I don't know where we're gonna go when there's not enough money to do it, unless the county decides in the next administration to borrow the money. You know, and your next board may very well decide to do that.
Right.
But as far as I'm concerned, I'm not interested in borrowing money in the purchase of the building. My purpose of it was for an administration building.
Right.
The library got lumped in there, how, I don't know, and it doesn't really matter to me, the administration building for the county. Because if we don't spend the $3 million, which was passed and everyone voted on it, okay, if we don't spend the $3 million on the administration building, and that nowhere in it says library.
In the splosh.
So the $600,000 automatically can't come out of that.
Right.
All right, so if we don't
Very
spend the
good.
$3 million on an administration building for the county, they can't spend it on anything. They can be spending it on a parking deck. That's not even gonna get half of that. So, I mean, the last figure I heard on the parking deck was $5.5 million. I mean, we could ask the guy next door, he's building one, but I don't think that's reasonable. I think the county needs an administration building to where Just like my wife today had to come to probate court to get her concealed carry license. She had to walk through all the gauntlet. I mean, it's just, we need a spot to do business besides in one central area here. That's still my, I mean, when I was, standing up to get the administration building on the SPLOST ballot, that was my whole purpose back then, was so you could get a place, even if it's a satellite office, to buy your tag. And if you're, there's a lot of people in better shape at the age of 75 right now, but this one particular lady that I know, and who I've talked to several times, she said, you know, I hate having to go to the courthouse, park half a mile away, and then when I get there, she said, if I couldn't walk up the stairs at my age, I have to walk 250 feet around the ramp. And I don't think it's fair for any elderly person to have to do that. I don't think it's fair that the elderly people don't have a spot right in the front. But, you know, we can't control where everyone.
Commissioner Johnson, what I'm saying is, we're gonna have to do that same type of standard procedure to see if that building is good for the admin building as well. We're gonna, that's a
But the building came with a
standard
report.
step.
The building came with, what report came with the building?
The environmental phase one, that there wasn't,
Any big
like,
test.
they haven't tested, they didn't pull stuff off the test for mold, and they haven't done any drilling as to rock. That's
Okay.
There's an environmental phase one, and there's a phase one topographic as to elevation and
Okay,
things.
all right.
So that would go along with it regardless if the library was or wasn't.
But do you think that it's fair, since myself and Mr. Helton are leaving at the first of the year, do you think it's fair for the new commissioners not to be involved in this decision?
No, they can be involved in the decision. I'm just looking at getting that preliminary thing so they can have more information, so we can make a better decision, one way or the other.
Right. But what if the
And
next
that would
two
show,
commissioners-
if we had a heavy rock that took blasting, it would cost a lot more money
Yeah,
to renovate.
right. But
Or
if you're
the
worried about
ad-
rock, they moved the whole mountain behind it at the high school, it used to be the stadium, they moved that whole mountain and didn't hit anything they had to blast. I mean, I just know that from experience, but
Right.
my thing is, what if the other two commissioners that occupy these seats don't even want that building? Then we're gonna waste another $11,000, and I don't feel like doing that myself, so.
Right.
I mean, I don't know their intentions, I don't know if they even know yet till they get briefed and see what all the numbers are, because I'm not gonna speak for anyone that sits up here, but what if they are not even in agreement with it anyway, and we spend $11,000? I just think we're a month away from new commissioners, and I don't see why we would do it now.
Well, the library board, has to meet, and then they can put it off, we can put it off.
Well, if it's about the library, I'm not concerned with the library going in the White Path building. They've already been asked that, they denied it.
Some of them did, and they were very vocal, but not all.
But I think it's very unfruitful to be talking about a library when there's no money to build a library. I don't know why we're talking about building a library. Unless you're planning on borrowing some money, and if that be the case, I'm definitely not in favor of it.
Mr. Hilton?
Am I in the wrong seat? I thought.
You're right there.
Okay, well, all right. First of all, the whole SPLOST was about administration building. Just like Mr. Johnson was saying, that was basically the first floor and the election office, or the administrative functions of the county. And the whole idea was to make it more easily accessible and improve the parking. And that building out there was purchased cash, no realtor involved, a direct purchase from the previous owner at what the county had it valued at, which was very low. And to buy almost 5 acres and that large building, I'll still say that was one of the best purchases we could have made, to make that mandate that the voters gave us. Now here's what gets missed in this whole thing. I don't know where all these big numbers are coming from, But you don't have to do everything in one big bite. You've got $3 million, $3,150,000. If SPOS continues on, you may have more money than that, minus the 1.3 that was spent out there to phase in offices. You could pick what are the two most trafficked or the most trafficked office in the administrative function and move them over, if money's a concern, and then do it, phase it in over a few years. Give another board a chance to say, well, we want to expand it further or not. The fact is, you've got the property over there. And if you know anything about real estate in Blue Ridge and some of the other purchases around, dig into that and talk to some business people, you'll find out that that was a good deal for the taxpayers. But when I came into office back in 2017, the election, the primary election, there was no runoff. It was determined on May 24th, 2016. So I had essentially 7 months. Okay? When I came into office, the Windy Ridge Fire Station was a big hole in the ground. Okay? The property was purchased and it had been cut down. There was no infrastructure. There was nothing. And it sat there for months and months and months and months. And when I came into office, that was the first thing our meeting. You and I and Commissioner Sosby sat here and said, that's priority one, to get off and get that thing done. And we had to go back and make some different decisions. And now, here a few years later, you've got something that is as good as anything in North Georgia for that. So as far as the White Path building, that got into a political ball game back and forth. And I can tell you right now, I don't intend to make any further decisions to spend another dime out there. That's for the new administration to come in and sit there and get the information and move forward. And if you're concerned about timetables, the state, certainly the state library board or department is aware that COVID delayed a lot of projects. A lot of things went on. They certainly understand that there's been a change in administration. So I would not feel good about spending another dime on that project, being as how there's going to be a change in a complete change, except for you. And what I would say is just get your plans, have your conversations. You and soon to be Mr. Hensley, Commissioner, can legally, you guys can go down here and sit anywhere you want and talk. That's completely legal. You can do that now, and it's a good time to do that, and I hope y'all are. But as far as me, I'm not willing to spend another dime on the White Path building during the next 53 days. Who's counting? 52. That's how I feel about it.
Well, I appreciate y'all's discussion and your candidness.
Okay. You want to go to item 5 now that you brought
up?
up?
Move right on to item 5.
Okay, go. You got it.
All right, hazard pay. I think Mr. Johnson said earlier that it had been 5 or 6 weeks since we talked about that, and I felt like that, that since then, we might have had a little information. Ms. Doss, you want to add what you found from ACCG, what they talked about?
I believe that, and as Mr.
Johnson
said, Mr. Johnson said it's been about 6, 8 weeks ago. With the funds the CARES funds that we've been allocated, there's certain people that, or certain categories that we know that can be paid with their, not any question about.
First responders.
First responders, the people that fall under the sheriff's department, fall under the emergency management services.
So, all right, let's hit that again, because that was my question. Who is able to be paid from those funds? First responders.
In the sheriff's department. Not elected officials. And not department heads.
The first responders, firefighters, EMA, or EMT, does that include 911 workers?
As I read it, yes, sir. That's what I said. Yes, yes, sir. some counties have a total paid force. We kind of have a hybrid. And so you could, if you chose to, make a difference between, as I understand it, if you work a volunteer, you get paid so much per call. I'm not 100% on that, but don't define it, I think that's correct. So you could pay your volunteers, how that would be broken out as opposed to people that work a regular paycheck would have to be something that, the Board of Commissioners would decide.
Councilman, I just believe that, you know, these guys, every day, they run toward the COVID while we try to stay away from it as much as we can, because that's their job. And, but when they took that job, they didn't realize that it was gonna take all this extra risk and danger, and they've got family just like we do. And this money that we got goes from March to August. Okay? March to August, that's 6 months. I can't believe, you know, I'm thankful for our first responders, and I know you guys are too, that we can't find $100 a month to give to these guys and ladies because of what they do for us every day. We don't even realize what they put up with and come back every day to do it again. So that's my point. And I'm turning the floor back over to you guys and tell me what you guys think about it.
I'll tell you exactly what I think. I think that when we had these discussions and the feedback is there was nobody was going to be completely happy. The ones that weren't going to get money would be mad. Discussions I had with the money we were talking about, folks were saying that wasn't enough. And you know, you're this close to the end of the year. If someone gets a bonus pay right now, hey, a few months are going to be paying taxes on it. And I think after the first of the year, again, it's not that long out there. You'll have a new board, you can sit down, and they may wind up, from what I hear, well, you're pushing more money than what I'd be willing to do. So they may be better off, really, those folks, and nobody's disputing anybody's dedication and the danger of dealing with this stuff. But if you really want to get technical, really, unless someone has actually got COVID, I mean, how do you say, I mean, if you go out just because I'm dealing with somebody, do I deserve a hazard pay? What about the person that's going out to an actual COVID case? And then, how do you find out if that person's got COVID? You got HIPAA, they got privacy. How are you going to get that? To me, Mr. Patterson, I'm through with the hazard pay thing. I'm going to be real blunt with you about that. And I don't really appreciate it being brought up here, a last minute thing like this. You get this agenda on Thursdays.
Right.
You have plenty of time. You get this on Thursday, correct, sir? I mean, you didn't used to get it that. You used to get it like the day of, didn't you?
Yeah.
So you know, having this discussion was something that's pretty complicated here when we have other things to deal with. Quite honestly, I don't appreciate it.
Well, I feel like it's necessary to do.
Well, good for you.
And we just have to differ with that.
Okay.
Because I believe these guys, we need to show them we have their back.
Okay.
They've been dedicated, some of these people have worked 20 years for the county. And you know, they got Christmas coming up. All these things, and yeah, we can push everything to the start of the year. We can do that, and I understand that around the thought. But I just believe, you know, Mr. Johnson, you told me one time when I started, you said, just do what's right. Well, to me, that's the right thing to do. Now, it may not be for you guys, and I can accept that. I'm not going to be mad at you, but that to me just seems like that is the right thing to do, to have these people's back.
Yeah,
And to show them. You just can't say it. I mean, to show them.
well,
Other counties, you're talking about Union County. Union County already given their people money, and other counties too. And you just saw Ms. Dawes, you asked Ms. Dawes, and she told you that that's not our money, that's the states who gave it to us. And they gave it to us, and it was called hazard pay. And we're just sitting on it.
They didn't give us hazard pay, it was under the CARES Act.
Well, that's, but that hazard pay is under the CARES Act.
So let me get to the real, because I'm not saying I'm for or against anything right now, because I'm telling you, I've got 3 friends right now that give me up down the road that they hadn't already got the hazard pay. So it means something to me too, so don't think you're the only one that's been
saying
backed up about it, because, I know a lot of people the age that work for the EMS or the EMT. So my whole thing was, when I asked, I didn't ask for the hazard pay to be brought up. Do we recall what I said when it first got brought up?
You said you wanted Ms. Dawes to check into it.
I said this is gonna be a can of worms
Right.
that will never get back in the can. That's exactly what I said, because some people are gonna feel like it's unfair. And I'm not saying I'm against it, by no means. I'm not saying, but see, we haven't talked about the most important thing. How much money are we talking about?
Not that much.
I mean, because when that was presented to me last time,
That's
Robert, was it
up
number
to-
500?
That's up to us, yes.
I think so.
I think it was 500, if I recall correctly.
And that's less than 100 a month.
Right.
That's less than 100 a month. 100 would be 6, of course. But that's what we talked about.
So if our number was at 5, I asked Ms. Dawes to find out what we can legally get. So I think I probably need to back up, because I don't want anyone to misconstrue the fact to think that I don't want people to get hazard pay. And I hope you don't think that, Mr. Patterson, that I don't want people to get hazard pay. I wanted to find out what we could do legally.
That's why I wanted to discuss it, okay?
All right, so we're discussing now. So
Right.
you feel comfortable that legally those recipients can get it, and it not cause next year or the year after, or whenever usually the government starts pulling the strings back, we're not gonna have to cause
I'm
anyone.
comfortable with that, whether or not, there was some question about other categories, and,
But as far as those categories, we're in stone, we feel confident.
yes, sir.
Because, just so you know, Mr. Patterson and Mr. Hill, the only decision I'm gonna make is one that she feels confident is not gonna come back in the future. And then a year down the road, well, former commission board, and then my name get thrown in the middle of that, didn't do this or didn't do that. If she feels confident about it, then I'm fine with it. I was fine with it when it was first brought up. But I think there were some differences in amounts and who was eligible.
Right.
I think the biggest problem is gonna be is who's eligible, because we can all 3 remember when this first came up, we had people coming out of the woodworks who felt like they deserved it too, even though their offices were closed down. They all felt like they deserved it. Okay? You answered another good question. Do department heads deserve it? From what I understand, they can't get it, correct?
That's my understanding, yes, sir.
So that's another question I had back then.
Right.
So I just wanted to make it clear to you, Mr. Patterson, and to all the citizens, and most importantly, the people who were talking about paying hazard pay to. I don't have a problem paying hazard pay, and I'm not balking, and I'm not stalling, I'm not doing any of that. I just simply wanted to find out what it was legally able to do, period, and to whom we could do it for. I wanted someone else to say who it's legal to pay. Because I'm not educated enough to know what departments or what agency can be paid.
Right.
And just so all 3 of us understand, I am okay with, like I was at the time, the 500. I'm okay with paying who we can legally pay. I'm okay with all those things. But the only reason that I haven't spoke on it since, and it really hit me hard probably about a month and a week ago, when a good friend of mine hit me about it. He's like, what is your problem? Why do you have a problem with paying us hazard pay? Because he'd been told a story which was completely untrue. Okay? Completely untrue. I'm not against paying hazard pay. As a matter of fact, when we first started talking about this, I felt sorry for the jailers. They don't have a choice when someone is brought into the jail. Our discussions went from, well, who gets it? Who doesn't get it? And my first thought was, to people who have no choice. If I'm having a heart attack right now, Patrick, you have no idea if I have COVID or not. You have no idea. Robert, you don't either. Okay? You have no choice but to work on me. So that was my opinion at the time, is if you don't have a choice but to deal with a person, an officer, he has to arrest someone. He can't just say, well, just keep running. I'm going to catch you when I find out you don't have COVID. Or most importantly, some of the lower people in the totem pole, a jailer. They don't have any choice but to be not only in a confined area, but, you physically have to fool those people. And they have no idea if they have it or not. So I'm a little torn. I thought it was over and done with about the hazard pay. I thought the next, because I haven't heard anything about it. So since you brought it up, I'm letting everybody know how I feel. I'm not against you getting paid. And as a matter of fact, unless it's some exorbitant amount above $500 that you're thinking or whoever's thinking, I'm fine with the $500, and I'm fine with paying it to whoever we can legally pay with no future ramifications for this board.
So you make
And
a
I'm going to
motion.
leave it, and I'm going,
Are you gonna make a motion
for what?
to pay it?
Well, are you okay with $500?
I'd like for it to at least be $100 a month, and I think, I think that would be, you could even argue the point, how much more. But I would think it'd be good, but I would negotiate with you, and I would make a second. If you're gonna go ahead and make a motion, you decide.
I didn't bring it up, Mr. Patterson. Why have I got to decide that? I didn't
You've
bring
been talking about it.
What do you mean I've been talking about it? Because you brought it up. I'll tell you what then, I'm for $500, and for the people she said legally can accept it and not hold any future ramifications for this county in the future, I'm fine with that.
I second the motion.
I haven't made one.
Did the chairman ask for a motion?
No, I thought you did.
Excuse me, did the chairman ask for a motion?
No, go ahead, Chairman, you're in charge.
Excuse me, I haven't decided what I'm gonna do yet.
You're in charge.
I wasn't sure.
You're always in charge.
Well-
I'll back off.
Legally, we can give, I'll give you a little dirty secret. Legally, hazard pay, we can do whatever we want with this. Now, I know what you say is in there, but there's nothing that prevents us from giving hazard pay to everybody in the county. We could give every person in this county money, hazard pay, if we decided to. Because the state, through the Federal CARES Act, gave us the money. We still have a pretty good chunk of it. We spent a lot of it on equipment, for Robert and other things in the courthouse, but if we decide we want to give it away, we can just do that. And my concern on this hazard pay thing, it's not that people don't deserve it. It's just I don't think you're going to do anything except create dissension with people. However, if you two gentlemen feel that we need to do $500 for whatever group that you want to, okay, make a motion. But I honestly think after the first of the year, Mr. Patterson, that you probably will have a better position. You want to do more than $500. I can't speak for the new board, but you probably have a chance to do better than that and not have some of the phone calls that I've had over people being mad that it wasn't enough, okay? I mean, you went out and had a meeting on your own with some other people, and you were talking about $1,000.
No,
No?
no, it was 500. It was 500.
Okay.
And
I know other
Mr. Chairman,
counties
I
have
don't
given
want to cause any
$1,000.
dissension. That's why from the very beginning, I thought, oh no. But, I mean, and I still think, oh no. But if the county attorney's telling me that's what we can legally do, I'm fine with doing that. I mean, I thought, uh-oh, from day one, so, and I was very plain about that sitting there. I was like, this is gonna be bad. I mean, but, I also don't want people thinking that I'm not genuinely concerned about them being compensated either, because I am genuinely concerned. I wanted to do it right. I didn't know by me waiting for clarification from the county attorney that many people would get upset with me. You know, and all I'm trying to do is my job the correct way, in the legal way, to keep your future board from coming back. I don't want to read about me in a year. You know, I don't want to. I don't, you know, but I guarantee you if something comes back, it's going to be previous board. And that's the only reason, just so all of you understand, and I'm being as honest as I can be right now, that's why I wanted clarification. Not because I'm non-sympathetic. I just wanted clarification legally. But now at this point, what you have outlined is legal. If anyone gets mad, they can get mad at who said it can be provided to.
Why don't you and Mr. Hensley get together and decide what you want to do with this? It's only, you know, first of the year's coming around. You guys can decide what you want to do. You got money, we got money in the bank, the county does, and you can do what you want to do. Why does it have to be an issue right now? I honestly feel, it's not an issue of people what deserve is. But I feel at this point, I don't want to make any decisions that don't have to be made right now. I'm not going to do anything that's going to hurt the new administration, and I don't want to do something that takes it out of their hands. And I feel pretty strongly about that. And I think that the people who you deem to get the hazard pay will be better served to do that. I don't want to use county funds to curry any favor. I've never felt that way. I don't believe that's the right thing to do. But you obviously feel like it's an important, critical issue because you keep hammering about it. Well, I really feel that gentleman back there in the corner will be sitting up here before too long. You have plenty of time to sit down with him, if you haven't already, and hammer something out. And when first of the year, you guys will be set to go on it. That's what I'd like. That's the way I feel about it. Now, you know, if there's any.
Well, I mean, I don't want to welch on my words, so,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I said if she ever clarifies exactly who they're stating, I'm fine with the 500, but now he may not be fine with the 500. You might not want to pay a dime. I mean, I'm fine with 500, what we originally talked about, and spent hours talking about it, and it was a very important, we got to talk about this hazard pay, and then so I don't want to leave this office, people like, he just didn't want to give us that money, because it's not about me, and it's not about the money. I just wanted clarification. So if the two of you were fine with the 500, I'm just letting you know and laying it out there. I'm fine with 500 to who she said it's appropriate to give it to.
Who are you talking about, the two of you?
The two of you commissioners.
So you're not gonna vote on it?
I said, I am fine with $500.
Well, I know Mr. Hilton doesn't feel like he would be.
Well, let's not go read my mind.
Okay.
Let's not start saying things I'll read my mind.
No, tell me what I thought you said. You go ahead.
I feel like that you can do this after the first of the year.
Well,
And I feel like that if we do this, we're gonna start counting off the different departments. You got volunteers, you got everything. It's a big deal. And I really feel like the new board can do, it's only another, I mean, if you're talking about Christmas coming up, well, hell, there's sales after Christmas. If you do $500 after the first year, they get 2 for 1. I mean, can't people buy stuff out at your place cheaper, Jamie, after the first of the year?
You know.
Yeah.
We're trying to make as much as we can to live.
But, you know, that's.
I mean, so how do you feel like, I mean, I just want to go back to the $500. Any more than that, I never talked about it and I never threw any thought to it. So
Well,
I'm not fine with anything over $500 right now because we never talked about it. It's not what was recommended during our talks. I don't want all our talks to go to waste either, though, all the time we spent on this. I mean, because,
well,
yeah, I feel like that's what it's going to be right now. I'm fine with 500. If one of the two of you are fine with what I'm proposing, then I guess it's good. But with who the county attorney says that it's eligible to go. Any other than that, I'm not bending the rules or anything for any other people to get it. It's not.
Would there not be a problem if we gave them 500, now we could give them some more?
You could do whatever, yes, you could.
Is that not
You could do
correct?
whatever you want. You could give them 5,000 more. But I'm in favor of our original talks. And I said
As
that.
Mr. Hilton said, don't put words in my mouth, 5,000 more.
Well, yeah, I said you could. I
I
didn't
know
say
that.
you would. Could, would, should.
Mr. Patterson, what I would appreciate for the last few meetings we got, you get this agenda on Thursdays, and you get it for a reason. It's to let the county clerk know if you have other issues you want to add. And I think something important like this, there needs to be much better communication, because when you came into office, you talked about that being the key, is communicating.
Right.
And then, did you send any of that to the county clerk, your additions?
No,
You did not?
I did not.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you letting me have it. And I'm through. I'm not going to, make any motions.
Okay.
So it's handed back over to you. Thank you for both of you, your concerns.
Mr. Chairman, I think I've wasted enough breath on this. I'm not gonna drop it again. I don't mind making a motion to pay the $500 for who she says is eligible to get it. I'm not gonna waste as much of my life on something to just drop it. And then get my name smeared again. So that's where I stand for 500, who she says is eligible to do it, what she just read off a minute ago.
Do we know how much money we're talking about? If we did $500, do we have an idea of what the total amount of money the county will be obligated to? Ms. Doss?
Sir, I do not know, because I do not know how many employees that is.
Robert, you had a list. You've got a good idea. You're the EMA director. How many people is that?
The sheriff's department and our department, probably somewhere around, I'm guessing 80, I don't know exactly numbers for the sheriff's department, I'm guessing around 80 to 90 employees, and then there would be maybe no more than 24 volunteers, which would be, if you did volunteers, at some amount.
Now, volunteers, they weren't on that list, or were?
I don't know.
They are actually.
That I
Now,
don't
hold
know.
on a minute. Now, we just knew a second.
No, I know the category, sir, I don't know the people, I don't know the number of people. When I say sheriff, I mean anybody that falls
And
under,
he's talking about volunteers.
and that's what I said, we have a hybrid, so you would, somebody would have to determine.
And I thought we ruled that out last time. With volunteers were not in the mix.
That would be y'all's choice. They are actually first responders. They're firefighters and first responders who respond to calls, but that would be the board to choose that. I mean,
Well, I don't think a volunteer could get paid as much as someone that's.
Correct, see, that's what,
Right.
all right, first of all, let's back up the sheriff. Under sheriff's department, then we're talking about jailers, but I consider everybody that Dayton Kirby hires and fires under the sheriff's department. I
Right,
don't
okay.
know
So
if we.
sheriff, firefighters, EMTs, well, what else you got?
911 operators, did you say?
Yeah, 911 operators, and,
Jailers, sheriff's deputies.
yeah, all the deputies, regardless of what capacity they serve in. The only thing that I don't know is how do you categorize, backing up. First responders, volunteers, they get paid per call. They would be qualified, but whether or not they get the same amount as somebody that works a regular scheduled shift would have to be determined by your board.
But I think, didn't you give recommendations when we were going over that?
We
Pretty
did
sure.
originally have a plan worked out for volunteers if you chose to do that. It was based on the number of calls they responded to during that period of time,
All right.
up to a certain,
I think, Robert, we did $10,
Pardon?
$10, something like that.
I believe, was that correct? I don't remember, to be honest with you. I wasn't.
So how much money did we get? I bet Ms. Gadsby knows
Ms. Gadsden?
Total grant money,
that. Yeah.
Right.
about 1.3 million.
Okay, and we spent, what, roughly 300 on equipment, something like that? Somewhere,
I did the numbers for Mr. Patterson,
You did.
some time back, but I don't remember, but I can't remember how much, but I think if we included hazard pay, and I don't remember what we based the hazard pay on it when I gave you the numbers at the moment, but, we would have about 600,000 left.
we're paying the hazard pay to the first responders. So there's more than
Because
enough
we got to
money cover.
use some
Yes.
budgeted money with the CARES grant money.
So we're talking about maybe 100 people,
Roughly, yes.
roughly 100 that would get the full $500. Is that correct? So that's 50,000. And then you got, if you start breaking it down to people, volunteers or a group like that, you may have one volunteer that's made, a certain number of calls and some that have made a few. And then you've got to turn all that into payroll, and we got to get it straight. So, that's going to be complicated when you get beyond one set number for people. Mr. Hensley, what do you want to do? You want, let's just throw it out here. You're going to be here in 6 weeks.
I'll tell you this, don't mind the mule over the wagon. If you don't want to wait till after the first, you'll be on my head. How's that?
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
It's just.
Again, this is one of these decisions. It's a very
I understand.
unusual time.
Yes,
when, and I truly intend to do no harm or make any decisions that when you come in here, you're gonna think that blankety blank, I wish he had. I don't intend to do that.
Well, I'll just say this, I never thought that up to this point,
Yeah,
and I told everybody, I want you to understand right here in front of God and everybody, this was never personal against you, okay? Nothing. And it just kind of got twisted around all the way around. It is what it is. All I'm saying is, I understand that you're not gonna do anything to hurt this county. I don't think that you will.
yeah,
Nobody's saying that, I don't believe.
yeah. No, I'm just saying about the hazard pay.
Yeah.
I mean, would you prefer to have the time to really dig into this and find out what, because when you're sitting up here, you and Mr. Patterson, you guys will do whatever you want to do. And there's plenty of money in the till to do it, I can tell you that.
I understand that, but here's the thing. We have had, months, we did come up with reports and we come up with names who we thought we should do and shouldn't do. And I understand somebody's gonna get the feelings hurt. It's a tough decision.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying, I'm just taking it on me right now.
All right.
Earl, I'm gonna relieve you of this, Mr. Patterson.
Well, you ain't related to
Mr. Elton,
that.
I'm just saying, I know you want to do
$500
something.
who she said.
Okay.
But if you didn't want to,
I'm not gonna leave here and it get thrown back at me anyway.
no, it's not gonna get thrown in
$500,
there.
eligible.
I'll be more than happy to take that responsibility
If
on.
y'all wanna give another
After
500,
the first year,
20
and
more.
that would give us plenty of time to talk and see and break that
Well,
down.
you'll get some phone calls.
Oh, I'm sure you will. I've done that several.
You want to put your phone number up here?
Everybody's got it, trust me.
Well, I really feel like you may have a completely different perspective on this. And when you come into the office, you've been here, you've heard us, we've had these discussions. And, I don't feel like I'm wasting time because, we're discussing everything from here to Timbuktu. But I really feel like this is something that you will be in position to do what you feel like you need to do, can make a final decision, and you won't have to deal with a group of people that, well, they didn't treat us right, they didn't give us this or that. I think you got plenty of time to do that. In fact, again, you two guys can sit down and agree on this before you take office, and it is completely legal. He can do that. Because not until he's sworn in after January 1st or, whatever day, if that's a Sunday or whatever day that is. At that point, up until that point, you and Mr. Patterson can sit down, wherever you want to talk about it. And I'm just saying that, affording you that opportunity, I know if I were sitting where you were and as vice versa, I'd probably appreciate doing that. Give me plenty of time. So I'd like to just basically table that, Mr. Patterson, until Mr. Hensley's sitting here and you guys can, drill into this, work it out, and have a discussion. You can say one number and he can say another, and boom, you go. Is that okay?
It's fine with me.
All right, okay.
Thanks for y'all both wasting all my time talking about it.
Hey, I didn't hear a motion from you.
I've made it twice.
No, I didn't. Mr. Elton, did you hear a motion from you?
I said I'm fine with $500 to who she said was eligible to receive it, period. I made it twice.
You didn't say, I'll make a motion to give
I'll make that
$500.
motion right now that we pay $500 to every first responder that the county attorney, Lynn Doss, outlines is eligible to receive it. As of right now, I make that motion.
Do you accept that motion, Mr. Elton?
I am, with the numbers that have been thrown out here, the kind of expense it is, no, I don't The only motion I want to make right now or ask for is a motion to adjourn, close this meeting.
Make a motion to adjourn.
All right, I'll second. All in favor? Meeting is adjourned.